When you buy a bike from a shop, you should get a basic fit to make sure you've got the right size frame, that you're comfortable and it's safe to ride. And once you started to get familiar with your bike, it's time to look into your position in a little more detail. And this is where a professional bike fit can come in handy. With a time trial bike, it's often a compromise between comfort, power production and aerodynamics. So if you've invested in a new time trial bike, you want to make the most of those aerodynamic features, and working on your position is vital. Several small tweaks can end up making a significant difference. There are many tools and software that can be used by bike fitters, but they still require an expert eye that can interpret them, but also listen to your individual needs. Now, I need to find a position that will suit me for a long distance triathlon. I'm delighted to say that I've got ex-pro cyclist and Ironman triathlete Magnus Bagstedt, who's agreed very kindly to help me out on this bike fit. So thanks, Magnus.
No problem.
Where are we going to get started?
Well, normally we will start with setting your cleat position up on your shoes, but because you are in the middle of a race season and you've got some events coming up, I would refrain from touching them too much right now. So I'd rather you come back and see me at some point when you got a downtime, because as soon as you start messing around with your cleats, you're always running that risk of having your knees going a little bit tender and so on. And we don't want to be jeopardizing any events that you got coming up. So first of all, I'll just get you onto the bike. Great. And then we're going to mark you up so that the cameras can read what you're doing.
Well, as you can see, I'm now, Magnus, you've covered me in all these dots. What happens next?
So we now made the cameras able to see you and see every motion that you're making when you're riding your bike. So the next thing now is that we're going to get you riding your bike for about a minute or so for your body to settle down on the bike. You find you in a comfortable position. And then when I see that you're sitting still on the bike in the position that you normally do when you're putting out a bit of power, then I'll record about 30-40 seconds of image on the computer, and then we'll go back and analyze that, see what's what, make any changes, and then we'll repeat that until we found a position that we're happy with.
Okay, so you've had a quick look, and I know you've made some quite drastic observations. What did you notice, Magnus?
Well, I've noticed that you're struggling to open up your hip flexor on the left-hand side, which means that you're tilting over every time you're pedaling. Most of the time, that's something that comes from too much traveling, previous injury, falling off your bike, even running injury sometimes can limit that one. But the biggest thing that we all struggle with is that we sit down at the office desk, we sit down at home, we sit down in a car. I don't know if you've been traveling, airplanes tends to be really, really nasty on your hip flexors. So the first thing you can do as soon as you've traveled somewhere, if you have an event coming up in the next couple of weeks, just make sure that you stretch out those hip flexors, because they make such a big difference, not only to your bike ride, but also to your run. And those are the two key elements really in any triathlon that you're doing. So we're going to have a look at that. Also adjust your position a little bit on the saddle as well, just to allow you to open up those hip flexors a little bit further. So that's going to be the next thing.
Great. Most people that come to see you, what's the main thing they're looking to sort, or what brings them to you?
Well, it comes various different problems. There's neck problems, shoulders, lower back, knees, anything really. As soon as you're not feeling comfortable and sitting, there's something going on every time you're riding your bike, it's more likely that the bike setup isn't quite right and specific for you, and that's what makes the difference. But what we do as well is obviously guiding you and advise you on what to potentially look for. So if there's any physical imbalances that might need to be sorted, and obviously we keep on coming back to hip flexors with people working and sitting in cars and so on. So it's more like the general package. So I'd say having a bike fit at least once a year is probably a good thing to do to make sure your body changes, you crash, you have anything that can happen to it. And you know, as we get older, we get less flexible. So all these things kind of come into play when you're doing a bike fit.
So Magnus, I know you're keen to adjust my position on my tri bars here. What is it that needs moving?
Well, number one, we need to move around your hands and your wrist, basically. Holding your wrist out like this, like you are currently, opens up the whole frontal area, so you're creating a massive amount of drag coming through in your stomach and pelvic area. There was actually quite a famous Tour de France rider who lost the Tour de France based on holding his wrist rolled out like you are right now.
Okay.
So the key thing is, if we move your handlebars in a little bit tighter, right, like that, so, and then rotate your wrists in, which naturally happens at this point. It also rotates your shoulder in, which releases a lot of the strain on your shoulders, which you mentioned earlier that you have. And as you can see from the front here as well, the hands covering the majority of the frontal area of your body, it means that you're slipperier in the wind.
And I was, I guess, pleasantly surprised that all of the things we changed were quite minimal, like a few mils from what you're telling me, but it ends up making a big difference overall.
Yeah, no, that's what we specialise in here, is making sure that it's getting the level of detail and understanding the different and how the body reacts in different ways. So just because you feel like you're sitting right in one way, just changing it 1 or 2 millimeters may actually balance you out a little bit more, like the case was with you. We actually found that you leveled out in terms of how you sat on the saddle by moving the saddle 3 millimeters.
Yeah, I mean,
so
tiny, isn't it?
It's tiny details, and everything kind of works with each other. So the moment we drop the handlebars, we need to adjust the saddle and so on and so on. So it's getting the whole package, and that's what we love doing here.
Great. That was a bike fit specific for a triathlon time trial bike, and the thing that really struck me was how such tiny changes end up making quite a big difference to my overall performance. And I'm desperate to head out onto the road and check it out. So massive thanks to Magnus for his time today. If you like this video, give us the thumbs up, and remember you can subscribe to GTN by clicking on the globe. And if you want to watch a video on how to descend on a time trial bike, just click over here, and to see some triathlon tech from our trip to Rotterdam, click down here.